You don't experience the world as raw facts. You live inside a constant simulation your brain creates. This simulation is a blend of perception, memory, and prediction, manifested as thoughts, imagery, and feelings. Consider the familiar moment when you read a short message and feel your stomach tighten, or when you suddenly avoid a task by overcleaning or checking your phone. Nothing dangerous is happening in the room, yet your body is reacting because your imagination is simulating what the moment means and predicting what might happen next. Modern psychology calls this core function perspection, the capacity to represent possible futures and use those representations to guide action, whether that takes the form of useful preparation or paralyzing worry and overthinking. This video is about mastering that simulation loop: simulation, state, action, evidence. If you want to stop being directed by your internal model and start directing it, this is the first step. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the practical steps we break down today. Many people mistake imagination for mere fantasy, something used when bored, artistic, or escaping reality. In truth, imagination is one of the brain's main operating systems, running countless simulations every day. Whether you're rehearsing a conversation, worrying about an outcome, or anticipating a reaction, you are running tests so your mind can choose what to do next. This is critical for self-improvement because the brain is built for prediction, constantly guessing what's about to happen and preparing the body accordingly. When this simulation is rigid or threatening, you feel trapped. When it is flexible and accurate, you feel capable. Neuroscience confirms why this feels so convincing. The brain uses many of the same pathways for simulating the world as it does for perceiving it, though with a weaker signal. This is why what you repeatedly simulate becomes familiar, and what's familiar tends to feel safe, even if it's an unhelpful pattern. If you pay close attention, you'll realize your mind spends most of its time in places you are not, like jumping ahead to deadlines, conversations, and decisions, a function known as perspection. Research suggests that imagining the future relies on much of the same mental machinery as remembering the past, proving that your brain stores experience not just as history, but as raw material for building future scenes. A particularly powerful form of this is episodic future thinking, allowing you to pre-live a specific event, seeing the room, hearing the tone, and feeling the emotional tension, while perspection allows for planning and self-control, helping you trade a small immediate reward for a larger future one. It often backfires, collapsing possibility into a single catastrophic storyline, which we experience as worry. The key distinction is that planning ends with a specific next step, while worry ends with more worry. Planning calms the body, but worry revs it up. You are rarely responding to raw reality. Instead, you are responding to what reality means to you. This process is governed by two streams: bottom-up processing, sensory input, and top-down processing, expectations, memories, and beliefs. Perception is therefore a continuous process of inference, where the brain generates best guesses and checks them against incoming signals, leading to what some thinkers call a controlled hallucination. This top-down process is efficient, but if your expectations are biased, your perception will be biased too. Your imagination becomes a searchlight, causing you to notice threat cues more quickly if you expect danger, or openings if you expect opportunity. In ambiguous situations, such as an uncertain email, your inner model fills the gaps. If that model expects criticism, your imagination generates a scene of disappointment, making you walk in guarded. If it expects collaboration, you imagine a check-in and walk in curious. When you can catch this interpretation loop, input, interpretation, scene, body response, behavior, you can train a second look and widen the options before your body locks in. The body treats many imagined scenes as if they matter right now, causing your heart rate, breathing, and muscle tension to shift based solely on thoughts and images of future events. This is because your brain is constantly performing an appraisal. Is this safe or not? When a scene looks like a threat, the autonomic nervous system prepares the body to mobilize, even if you are physically safe. Importantly, imagery can be emotionally louder than pure verbal thinking. A sentence might be abstract, but an image can light up the system fast. This also means you are not just thinking about scenarios. You are rehearsing a response pattern. Brace, please, shrink, fight, run, and your body learns this pattern through repetition. The crucial self-improvement truth here is that the state you rehearse matters more than the outcome you fantasize. If you practice a scene while regulated, breathing, grounded, and steady, you are teaching your system a new default. I can be in this situation and stay safe. A critical and often overlooked fact is that imagination varies dramatically from person to person. Some people experience vivid visual imagery, while others have faint or absent visual imagery, known as aphantasia. However, no pictures does not mean no imagination. Imagination is a multisensory experience, showing up as sounds, body sensations, emotions, and inner speech. The goal of directed imagination is not to force you into becoming a visualizer, but to help you build an inner experience that actually changes your behavior, whether that's through a blueprint of sequence and sensation or a vivid movie. If you are not a visual imager, you should build your scene through sequence and sensation. For example, what are your hands doing? What does your posture feel like? And what emotion do you want to practice? The measure of good practice is simply this. Does it create a usable inner experience that helps you act differently in real life? If imagination is the simulation engine, words are the steering wheel. The language you use, both internally and externally, frames your reality. Calling something a problem generates pressure and a search for what's wrong, while calling it a challenge is more likely to generate effort and strategy. This emotional response follows meaning, and words are the fastest way you build that interpretation. When your inner speech becomes repetitive, absolute, and identity-based, using phrases like always, never, or I'm just like this, it shrinks possibility and tells your imagination to stop searching and start proving a catastrophic script. To upgrade this, your internal script must be precise, believable, and body-matched. For instance, using if-then phrasing like, if I start to procrastinate, then I will open the document and write one ugly paragraph, gives your imagination a specific, non-negotiable script it can run automatically. Most imagination techniques fail because they ask the mind to jump to a future it doesn't believe from a body that is not regulated. Directed imagination works by following 3 core rules. Rule 1. Be specific. The brain learns from scenes, not slogans, so train situations like, when I walk into the party, rather than abstract concepts like, be confident. Rule 2. Get regulated. If your body is braced, the simulation will feel fake. Regulation means slowing the exhale and softening the muscles just enough so your mind is steady enough to absorb new learning. Rule 3. Keep it believable. Your mind rejects huge leaps, so aim for a small, realistic move, a 10% shift, because believability is the essential bridge between imagination and action. Finally, remember the hidden rule: repetition. Your nervous system updates only from repeated experiences that teach it, this is normal now, making short, simple reps superior to a single intense session. The core protocol for applying directed imagination in the moment is the short, repeatable reset. Catch, settle, shift. Step 1. Catch. Identify the specific scene that just played, which triggered your body, such as, I'm imagining I'll look stupid, without arguing with the thought. Step 2. Settle. Work bottom up by giving your nervous system a safety cue, like inhaling normally and exhaling slightly longer for 30 to 60 seconds, which lowers the volume enough to choose a different path. Step 3. Shift. Change one small thing in the scene by 10% to create a more useful simulation. This could be shifting your posture, aiming for the smallest helpful outcome, like asking one question, or relabeling the interpretation from rejection to uncertainty. The sequence interrupts the loop long enough for you to choose a better next move, allowing you to anchor the new state with a short, body-matched phrase like, slow is smooth. Change is not installed by insight, but by repetition, as you fall to what you've practiced, not your best intentions. Therefore, the practice must be structured to make the right response familiar under pressure. Principle 1 is, dosage beats intensity. 2 minutes of the catch, settle, shift protocol, practiced 5 days a week, teaches your system more than one long, intense session. Principle 2 is one target per week. Pick one specific situation, like speaking up in meetings, to train consistently, as your brain learns faster in a focused lane. Principle 3 is, practice the first 10 seconds. Your life changes at the start line, not the finish line, so your rehearsals must automate the first move, especially by using implementation intentions, if-then plans. Finally, track practical markers like catching the spike earlier, settling faster, or recovering quicker. These are the real signs your nervous system is learning, regardless of how motivated you feel. Anxiety is often an acute form of uncontrolled imagination, where the mind runs a future scene, and the body reacts as if it's happening, making your imagination a threat detector instead of a planning tool. Worry and rumination are both forms of repeated rehearsal without resolution. While worry tends to be more verbal, constantly running what-if scenarios, it trains your nervous system for catastrophe. The goal is not to eliminate anxious thoughts, but to change what you do when they arrive. When you find yourself looping, thinking that ends with more thinking, your job is to interrupt the rehearsal and return to action, for example, by labeling the worry as a prediction, not a fact, and immediately writing one next step that belongs in reality. By practicing calm inside the trigger using the catch, settle, shift method, you teach your system that you can experience uncertainty without obeying it. Confidence is not a personality trait, but a practiced state, the sense that you can handle what happens next. This capacity is predicted by your self-image, which is a template built from your library of inner scenes. If your inner archive is dominated by scenes of freezing or failing, your nervous system adopts that as the default expectation. The quickest way to change this is to gather micro-evidence your body can believe. Small, specific rehearsals of behavior. For example, practicing I can ask one question, or I can begin even while nervous. When you rehearse these micro-behaviors and follow them with a small real-world test, you teach your nervous system, I can do hard things. Identity shifts quietly when a response becomes automatic. Confidence stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody, allowing you to move while imperfect and recover quickly. Habits are not controlled by discipline, but by prediction. When a cue appears, your brain predicts the familiar sequence and tries to run it with minimal effort. If you want to change a habit, you must interrupt the prediction loop at the start line, the first 3 seconds. You must use directed imagination to rehearse a new first move, teaching your brain a new default next step when the cue appears. This is done using concrete if-then scenes. For example, if I feel the urge to scroll, then I will put my phone face down and take 2 long exhales. Crucially, you must practice the friction, not just the ideal day, by including a realistic discomfort spike in your rehearsal and pairing it with regulation, thereby building tolerance for the moment that usually breaks your intention. Emotional triggers are shortcuts, where your brain links a present moment with an old danger or shame, pulling up an internal scene to protect you. The first skill is separating the trigger, real experience inside you, from the fact, accurate information about the present. For stubborn patterns, we use imagery rescripting, which means revisiting a distressing memory or image and deliberately changing the way it concludes so the emotional meaning updates. Most painful memories have 2 layers, the event and the conclusion. I have no power. Rescripting involves your present-day self entering the scene to introduce what was missing, protection, agency, or boundaries, so that the conclusion can update, reducing the scene's emotional authority when it tries to replay. It is an act of updating, not escapism, and should always be kept gentle and within your capacity. Imagination is powerful, but it is not a genie. The biggest myth is just visualize it, which fails when rehearsal becomes outcome fantasy instead of process rehearsal. If you imagine the finish line without training the first 10 seconds, you are building pressure, not skill. The second myth is, if I worry enough, I'll be prepared, which is false because repeated doom scenarios train your nervous system to expect threat, a form of nocebo effect. Imagination is a training partner that can shape attention and increase preparation, but it cannot exempt you from physics or the messy middle of action, feedback, and reality. To use it wisely, you must 1. Regulate first. 2. Keep it believable. 3. Pair imagination with action and feedback. And 4. Stop rehearsing doom. To ensure the method becomes an automatic default, focus on consistency over intensity. Week 1, Awareness, focuses solely on spotting your default scenes, collecting patterns like trigger, scene, action. Week 2, Regulation, involves spending extra time on the settle step, getting good at returning to a regulated baseline quickly through long exhales and soft shoulders. Week 3, Rehearsal, is about concentrated practice, choosing one specific scene, the first 10 seconds, and running it twice a day to build familiarity. Finally, Week 4, Real-world tests, requires you to collect proof by performing one micro-action each day that confirms your new simulation, such as asking one question or setting one boundary, which is how your identity updates. Progress is not perfection, it's a steady shift in what becomes normal. And in closing, your imagination is always running. The question is whether it's training you toward fear or toward steadiness and skill. If you've struggled to change, it's not because you were failing, but because your system was following the most familiar path. The leverage comes from moving your effort upstream, to the place where change actually starts: the scene, the state, and the action. Keep it simple. Catch the scene, settle your physiology, shift the next 10 seconds. Do it often enough that your nervous system treats it like normal. When you slip, treat it as data. Ask what scene ran, what a 10% better move looked like, and then resume. Don't restart. Your still place is not where your life stops. It's where you pause long enough to learn what's true and practice what's next. If you found this helpful and want more content like this, please share this video with a friend who needs a reset, and tell me in the comments below, what's the one scene you plan to practice this week?